going back to boundaries, the as you were talking about the prevent piece, and it makes sense if you're going to be educating and communicating about a boundary. Another thing that seems to be pervasive, a lot of people are talking about, is around employee engagement. And the conversation in employee engagement, at least as I observe it, doesn't seem to be focused too much on compliance and ethics.
Right.
It seems like there might be an element there, though. I guess you'd say, I don't know if you'd call it the traditional, but the typical line that you'll hear about employee engagement will be, do people like their job? Do they like their boss?
Right.
Do they feel like they're being challenged?
Right.
Do they feel as though they have an opportunity to progress through the organization? And that's the typical, I guess, storyline that I hear around employee engagement. Do you think there's a tie-in to some of this compliance and ethics stuff?
Yeah, I mean, there definitely is. I think, as we talked earlier about the fact that, really compliance and risk is part of everybody's job, employee engagement, in compliance is extremely important in order to carry out that aspect of your job. It's sort of the unwritten aspect of the job. A lot of folks come in and say, well, I'm just the marketing analyst. What do I need to know about compliance, right? And so when we think about how employees, really understand and embrace compliance as really just part of their everyday jobs to help protect the organization, then I think it makes it easier for employees to think about, compliance and risk not as sort of the internal police that's, coming after them or trying to make sure they don't do something wrong. But it's really about sort of the positive side of things of, how are you helping to uphold the values of the organization? And, hopefully if you're upholding the values of the organization, then you're naturally sort of protecting the organization from the aspects that, the unwanted aspects.
That's right. And in that traditional or typical conversation around employee engagement, one of the themes that keeps coming up time and time again is how important it is for the workforce to understand how what they do fits into the big picture.
Right.
And so it's almost like there's this meet point at the top with mission, vision, values, code of conduct, which is central. Every conversation about compliance and risk programs, we always talk about mission, vision, values, and code of conduct. And so, that instrument, that tool, while it serves, I guess you could say, compliance and risk purposes, also seems like a perfect roadmap to engage the employee in that piece, meaning for them to understand we're headed this direction. And here's how what you do helps, as we head toward that direction.
Yeah, and what I've seen is there's some very leading organizations out there that actually use the code of conduct all the way, sort of past the initial point of employment and even in pre-employment. So even as part of your interview process, before someone even accepts the job, they make it very clear that, hey, here's our code of conduct, here's the values that we embrace, and we expect you to, deliver on those values. We expect you to uphold those values in your everyday job. So as part of, accepting, this employment contract with us, it really is that, now as part of your job, you're representing those values, that you have to, understand that you're signing up for those things even before you walk in the door. And they make it very clear that, that has to happen as part of the process of, sort of your contribution to the organization.